Good evening and welcome to the Sound Off Show. My name is Linda Kirker. I host the program, and thank you so much for tuning in. We've had a little taste of fall, but then we got back to summer again, and who knows what lies ahead. But I'll tell you, I was out in my car the other day on an errand, and I took a look at the gold and the orange and the red, and I just didn't want to stop traveling because it was so beautiful, and how lucky we are to have that in this state when it comes to fall. It's something, well, it's my favorite time of year anyway, but I just love this time of year and enjoy it so much for the crispness and the beauty, and I hope you do too. There's a lot going on in this state and around the country, as I'm sure you all know. I happen to share emails with some of my high school friends from many moons ago. I won't tell you how many years, but it's a lot of years, folks. And it's so great. No matter where we live in the country, we can communicate through our emails. And I received this email from one of those classmates from way back when, and there's no indication of whether he wrote it or another. It looks like it came from a friend of his, but I have no way of knowing who wrote it. But I was so touched by it. I think it's such a great perspective that I wanted to share it with you tonight. And then I will introduce my guest. So here we go. This is what he said. For those who say, I'd vote for anyone but Trump, I can't stand him, or I can't believe you're voting for Trump. Well, folks, listen up. This is not a junior high or high school popularity personality election. I'm not just voting for the person. I'm voting for the platform. I'm voting for the Second Amendment. I'm voting for the next Supreme Court justice. I'm voting for the Electoral College and the republic we live in. I'm voting for the police and law and order. I'm voting for the military and the veterans who fought and died for this country. I'm voting for the flag that is always missing from the Democrats' background when they have an event. I'm voting for the right to speak my opinion and not be censored. I'm voting for secure borders. I'm into that. I'm voting for the right to praise my God without fear. I'm voting for every unborn soul the Democrats want to abort. I'm voting for freedom and the American dream. I'm voting for good against evil. I'm not just voting for one person. I'm voting for the future of my country. I believe that our president, Donald J. Trump, loves this country and is fighting to protect our nation's founding principles and the individual rights and freedoms of every American citizen. May God bless and protect our president, and may God bless America. I love it. I couldn't resist. So now I have the pleasure of introducing my guest. Her name is Retta Dunlap. And were you on once before years ago?
Yes.
That's what I thought, but it's been a long time.
It's been a long time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I've been doing this, I think it's closing in on 15 years. Mm-hmm. So welcome back.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
And I think that the topic we're going to be discussing tonight will be of great interest to many people out in the viewing land, because it's about our children, it's about our families and parents, and it's about our country, the future of our country, and the aptitude and the ability of our young children to excel in life and to be productive, independent parents and business people and so forth. So with that, I want to say, I'm so glad to have you here. This is a topic, homeschooling. You are a seasoned homeschooler.
Yep.
No longer doing it, but you are advising.
I still help in the movement.
You do
Protecting the
help
homeschooling
in the
freedoms.
movement. You told me it's the Vermont Home Education Network. I've heard of that. In fact, I know of a woman who worked with me on the Liberty Camp for students a couple of years ago, and why can't I think of her name right now? If she's watching, please call. But she is a homeschooler as well, I'm quite sure. And I'm a big fan of that solely because I see what's happening in our schools. That's really disturbing to me. So why don't you tell us a little bit about when you started homeschooling, how long, for how many children, and how that worked out?
Well, a lot of people say, when did you start homeschooling? And I say, well, at birth.
I agree.
You can teach a newborn baby to stick out its tongue. I had fun doing that. You don't want them doing it when they're 5. But yeah, really from birth. But the first time I enrolled in home study in Vermont was 1987, when my first child was 7 years old. And that happens to be the same year that the home study law 166B was placed into the statute. So it was kind of...
Oh, tell me about that.
Okay, so Vermont has a home study statute.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yes, that parents enroll in home study. It's how you can be, homeschool and provide the state with what they need to make sure kids are being educated. And it's also broad enough to allow parents to hire a tutor to totally teach their kids everything in their home. So it's called home study because it's a little broader than homeschooling, but it doesn't quite reach a co-op where parents could co-op together to teach kids, because that ends up being more like an independent school. So that was the statute that was put in. So I didn't realize it, but I was enrolling the first year it was in place.
Wow.
It's just something I had thought about even back in high school when I first heard of it. I said, oh, that sounds like fun. So I chose homeschooling on purpose, and I was ready for it. Unlike many of the parents, the COVID homeschoolers, they were kind of thrown into this, had to pull it together the last minute. It's simple once you learn it, but enrolling and it's a sharp learning curve.
I bet.
So yeah, I've just always done it on purpose because it was organic to me. My garden's organic. I eat organic. It's like raising my kids is just organic.
It's just basic, isn't it?
It's basic. And I had dinner. One of my goals was with the kids was I wanted to build a bridge to their adulthood so that when they were adults, they could cross back over. And I used to say, I'm not raising kids, I'm raising adults. So my kids, and I have 4 of them, 31 to 38, I believe is the age frame. They're my friends as well as my children.
And I bet they have a lot of respect and appreciation.
They do tell me that now.
Aww.
My one son at dinner a couple weeks ago, he said, Mom, you taught us a lot of things. And when we ran into something that we didn't know, you taught us how to learn, so we figured it out. So my family always used to think all we did was math, because it's all I ever complained about. But no, they know how to learn, and they're doing well in life. And
Well, they came to you with a question, but you didn't find the answer for them. You helped them to find it.
oh yeah,
And that creates self-sufficiency.
teach a child how to learn, and they
Yes.
can learn anything.
Yes. And I've been speaking with parents just off the cuff as I go around my life, and I run into people. Even in the doctor's office, I talked to one of the nurses. She was talking about her kids and some problems, and they don't want to do this, or they don't want to clean up, or whatever. And I said, well, you're the boss. Tell them what the expectations are, what their role is in the household. Running a household is a big job.
It is a huge job.
It's not just dusting and vacuuming and cooking and dishes and you name it, laundry. It's being part of a family and making a contribution, right?
Oh yeah, my kids would probably tell you I'd turn them loose at lunchtime, and I don't want to see you till it's dark. And don't come to me unless something's broken or bleeding. Take care of yourselves, and they'd be out in the woods for hours. So I was kind of laid back about parenting and homeschooling, but I also had lines. So it's hard to home educate your child if you don't have control.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't mean be controlling. I mean you have to be able to manage their day, because no child wants to do schoolwork, not even homeschooled ones. There's some kids that like to do schoolwork, but it's not homeschooling, or it's just they like it. So, you do have to have some kind of a control, but
Structure.
Structure. And I used to make the structure big enough so that they could bounce around and do things that they wanted to do. And when they intersected in with something I needed done, that got done. But no, they had a wonderful free time to make choices, to learn how to manage their day, to learn how to manage their life. I had them all washing their own laundry by the time they were 10.
Me too.
So, you just have to work with it, but have fun. They're people.
Yes.
People look at kids like, oh, they're just children. No, they're people.
They're human beings.
And treat them with respect and ask them questions and say, I need you to go to bed earlier because you're tired the next day. What time would you like to do that? It can't be midnight. And, my kids used to love to play in the dark outside. So
Really?
But, we were late night people anyway. But, it's things like that. You have to think of them like people, talk to them like they're people. We never really did much baby talking, but we had our little baby words now and then.
Well,
when
that's
they were
okay,
little.
because they're...
But yeah, no, the kids, my oldest, when he first spoke, it was a complete sentence. So he waited. You could see his mind thinking. He was getting ready to speak.
He was working on it.
He was working on it, but he wasn't going to do it till he could say it perfectly. So it's fun.
Oh, that's fun. Well, I have a little great-granddaughter who's going on 2.5. She was actually, I'm thrilled about this, she was born on my dad's birthday, which really gives me, a good feeling. But she's a little character. Her parents, she's the only child at this point, and her parents speak with her as though she's an adult. And she repeats their words and their sentences, and then she gets used to it, and then something goes on and she says it, right out of the blue.
Yeah.
It's really amazing what they are capable of.
Their minds are sponges.
Yes.
Work with that sponginess and go for it, because it doesn't have to all be bookwork at the table. My first 2 years were 5 subjects, 5 workbooks. Got to get through them, and when we're done, we're done, And
Each one had 5 work...
Yeah, there was 5 subjects, so one child had 5 subjects, 5 workbooks, and we got that done. I branched out after that, and I've done everything from that structure to home to unschooling, which is not no schooling.
Where you give them more...
It's parent-intensive. You provide the atmosphere, the learning tools that are there, and they're part of life. They're fun. They do them, and they learn that way. So it's not that you're not educating them. They're doing things. I mean, if you live life, you learn things. So I've done all of that. And my oldest, when he went to college, to Johnson, he got there and he sat in a classroom and said, finally, someone's going to teach me something. And he came home from college, because he lived at home at the time, and he said, Mom, they expect me to teach myself there too, because by the time they were in high school, I give them something, and here, you should learn this, you should do that. So
You didn't tell them how to do it?
I helped them when they needed it.
If they came to you and said,
Yeah. So there was people think of homeschooling, I'm standing up here and I'm explaining for 30 minutes to, like a teacher would in a classroom. And that's just not it. I'd rather give them a chapter to read. That's a teacher enough. And then...
So how old is the youngest? 31?
31.
So how are they doing these days? And any of them have children of their own?
Not yet.
Not yet.
And they all wanted, I said, when you're ready, I'll be ready. But I'm not going to push you. So,
No,
So well, actually, they all work in the same company.
No.
My 2 sons bought a software development company, and my 2 daughters work for them, as do I, part-time.
Wow.
So not only did we be friends and cross back over that bridge, these 4 kids are like the best of friends for each other.
Wow.
And, I just see it as normal. People tell me, your family's weird. you know? But no, they work well together, play together.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. Still.
Now, how do you develop a software company?
They actually bought a small startup that had developed some software, and then they took it and are taking it to the
Oh, boy,
next
that's
level.
way out of my realm. No, I use my computer, and sometimes that's a
As
problem.
long as it turns on, we're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, and the whole world homeschooling has finally been kind of accepted out there as
By some.
yeah, by some. It's the third leg of a stool. Public schools, independent, in Vermont, independent or private schools, and homeschools.
It should be the family choice.
And a lot of parents would like to choose it but can't, which is why I end up, on the school choice side of things, parents need to be able to make choices, and the money does need to follow the kid. I know that's not popular, and not every homeschooler believes that, but I've had too many moms crying at my kitchen table who needed to homeschool to get their kids out of a situation in public school where there was bullying and it wouldn't stop. And that's heartbreaking when there's nothing they can do. So, I kind of said, okay, parents need to be able to choose this too. And, if we're going to call the whole equity thing, we're not getting rid of homeschooling so we can have equity. We need to have the money follow the child.
I am so tired of hearing equity. I don't know how you apply that. I don't know why. I mean, if homeschooling is the choice, okay, fine. If public school is the choice, great. If a parochial school or religious school is the choice, fine. I don't know, where does the equity come in?
I don't delve too far into that as a homeschool advocate. I do let people know that's how I feel because I've seen parents who can't homeschool and needed to. I don't know where it's coming from, but they have to remember it used to be in Vermont before this last enrollment season, about 2% of the children in Vermont are homeschooled. Roughly,
Well,
if you do
that's
the
not
math.
much.
It's not much, but 98% of parents typically choose an institutional setting. I don't care whether it's public, parochial, or other private schools. Most of them want their kids in an institutional setting, and that's choice. But when things don't go well, 15, 20 years ago, I had a mom, she had adopted 2 kids, and there was a lot of trouble and some special needs, and she just couldn't handle them with her 4. And I said, the public schools are there to help you with your children. Maybe you need to enroll them. And she tried to. And there were 2 schools that could have taken them, and they were fighting over who had to. Neither school wanted them. This is a public school, and that was an eye-opener for me.
Were they special needs children?
Yes, they were, severely so. Nice, expense.
So
cost.
why don't we, now here's a question. Again, I go back to my early years, and I recall that there was a special school for children who weren't able to adjust or keep up, so to speak, with the traditional classroom for their age, okay? So we had a special school with people who are trained to give them the best that they know how to give them and to get the best from them. Whereas in the traditional classroom, I don't believe you can expect a teacher to be able to meet all the individual needs, outside of the normal, regular stuff.
Well, I don't quite know how that works. I was never in it because I only ever homeschooled. And so I only have anecdotal information from things parents tell me. My youngest daughter, my youngest child, she actually worked for a public school between college and getting a job. She worked for a school, and she was a paraeducator. And it was fascinating to hear how things work, and they had a life skills section of the school where the most severely handicapped and autistic kids would learn things they needed to learn, but occasionally she did take them to a regular classroom, and they need to mix. So, and in Vermont, I don't know how you'd have that kind of school with geography. So, and I hear what you're saying, because one child can disrupt a classroom, then therefore
it
no one
happens
learns.
more
It happens
than we
a lot,
know.
probably. But, yeah, I mean, but the odd thing about this, people think, special education, you need special teachers and special equipment, special rooms, special this, special that.
A lot of extra services.
A lot of extra services. Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of parents choose homeschooling because of their child's special needs. And in reality, if a parent homeschools their special need child, they accidentally back into what the child actually needs, which is a one-on-one to pay attention to them most of the day. And that's really what they're getting in the school. So people say, maybe parents shouldn't be allowed to homeschool their special needs kids. And I'm going, no, it's the perfect setting for a special needs child. When there's busy classrooms and everything is crazy at school and they can't.
How can the teacher who, I haven't been in a classroom for a while. My thought is that it's not unusual for the teacher to give an assignment and then you get on your computer and you look it up. You don't reason it out yourself. You read something that does the work for you, which I don't. There's nothing wrong with having a resource and getting information. I mean, we all do that. But if it's something you have to figure out, I prefer having them work on a pad with a pen or a pencil and do like math or whatever it might be. So I don't know how today a teacher with a classroom of, I don't know, when I was in school there were 25 students with one teacher, and there was never a problem. Because if you shot a spitball across the room, you were in the principal's office, and everybody knew it. So you behaved, you paid attention, you did your work. And it must have been easy for the teacher, so to speak, because there was no, back and forth conflict or, bullying or anything like that. And good for the learning process as well. But I've spoken with some teachers. I've spoken with some actually senior high school students in the senior class. They are not happy.
Yeah, and again,
I know you're not.
I don't deal in that world. Again, I do hear it from
I digress.
People. Just a little, but that's okay. This is your show.
Oh, well, no, but it's about you.
You mentioned technology. Okay, so since my sons own a software company, we were a big technology family.
Really?
And, oh, yes. I did say to the children, you got to be able to read before you get to spend much time on the computer. Mm-hmm. And we only had television in our bedroom. I mean, broadcast TV was in our bedroom, and so they didn't get much screen time when they were younger, because there's something to do with the developing brain, and constantly on a screen, it's not good for the brain.
No.
So in the beginning, they were limited, but my first son, who's the programmer, I challenged him. I got a C for Dummies book, and I said, I bet I can finish this book before you did. So boy, did he work hard. I did beat him, but we got the second book, and I saw that he was well on his way to doing it himself, and I quit. So technology I've used heavily. Now, a lot of people say, these computer games are terrible. They're terrible. And I don't quite agree with that. I didn't let my kids have, machine guns, games where you're going down streets shooting people. They didn't get to play those kind of games.
They didn't.
Age of Empires, Civilization 1, 2, and 3, these games taught them history, because they would play the game and be curious and go look something up or find a book to read so that they could build better cities and have better strategies in the game. Mm-hmm. So they learned a tremendous amount of history from those games. And so, the problem with technology is not the game, it's it's the screen time. How much time are they spending with it? And I was just, of course, these games are all network games you can play with people, so they play, I have 10 computers around the house with kids at them, screaming and hollering across the house to play this game, and so, technology didn't bother me so much. It was the screen time that I was worried about.
And today, you go to the supermarket or wherever, and I'm turning the sound on my phone down because I forgot, and it makes me sad to see the little children with a little cell phone like this. Come on. Keep talking, Retta.
That's about all I can say really about technology, because it is so pervasive in our lives. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, and it is a tool to be used properly, especially when you're educating children. And so, having kids in, I guess in the schools, at least in my local area, it's a K through 6 school, they all have laptops or computers, and I'm like going, that's okay, but, how is it being used, and I'll tell you what, Google's a great way to learn stuff, you just
type it in.
But, it does depend on how it's used, no matter where the kid is or the electronic is. But,
well, I just read this afternoon that the percentage of families or children who are now being homeschooled is up significantly.
yes, the numbers in Vermont have doubled.